Here we go now, baby. Right back in to the action for another day of the week. Welcome to the Thursday edition of Before You Bet, airing live right now on the Covers YouTube and X channels. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button and that subscribe button right down there. A lot of great content here on the Covers YouTube channel. Lots going on this weekend, of course, in football, but in the world of combat sports, we got the Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight, UFC 309, the return of John Jones. I interviewed UFC legend, the man I consider to be the GOAT of the sport, George St. Pierre. He got his thoughts on all of those fights. So check that out here on the Covers YouTube channel. Okay, so a big day today in the NFL. Really good-looking Thursday night football game. All of a sudden, the Commanders and the Eagles. We also have one game to discuss in the NBA. We weren't going to cover the NBA today, but John Metler messaged us and he says there's two bets I like for this game. So we will have an NBA segment at the tail end of the show. Then in the middle here, Jake Butt, his weekly appearance discussing the big topics in college football and some stuff in the NFL as well with Jake. If you guys want to participate in the show today, very easy to do so. Hit up that live chat on YouTube, on X. What do you like in the game tonight? Who's covering? Total going over or under? What props do you like? Who's winning the coin toss? Tell us what you like and why you like it. We will read a few off throughout the course of the show. Let's get into the National Football League, where we will go to the guy with the sexiest smile in all of sports betting. Jingles, right before we came on the air here, I saw that John Krasinski, who played Jim on The Office, was named People's Sexiest Man Alive. Any thoughts on that?
I just rewatched The Office again. I was a big John. Everybody was a big John fan when it came out early, the American Office. Everybody wanted to be Jim. I get it. I find it funny that he's the sexiest man. But am I one of good character to be judging who is the sexiest man out there? No, I think that would be dumb of me to say, no, I don't think he's that sexy, but sure, whatever. Work on it. Congratulations, John. You deserve it, bud.
Yeah, shout out to John if you're watching. Congratulations, buddy. Shout out to him for extending his career as well. A lot of actors, you have like a famous role on a sitcom, and then that's just it. And the show ends. He's in movies, TV shows. So good for him. The sexiest man alive. Okay.
Whatever happened to Ryan? Where did Ryan go? He didn't parlay that into anything. He's actually a pretty good writer.
I think he's a writer, maybe some stand-up comedy. It's tough, though, in the acting world. Okay, so we've had some good Thursday night football games here this season. We got a banger here tonight. We got the Commanders in Philly taking on the Eagles. The spread is up to 3.5 on that one. Kind of tricky. Both teams, the level of competition hasn't been extremely stiff for either team. Washington has played more difficult competition, but you look at the Eagles, they benched a lot of their starters in the fourth quarter of that game versus the Cowboys. Meanwhile, the Commanders go right down to the wire against the Steelers. A little bit of a road trip, I suppose. So Eagles probably the fresher team. I would lean in their direction on the spread as a result of that, but I don't like it enough to bet it. So, Jingles, any thoughts on the game as a whole before we get into your props here and my bets?
I don't think the Eagles have played their starters in back-to-back fourth quarters. So there's a lot to like. That Jacksonville game was over in the third quarter as well. So Saquon doesn't have a lot of tread on the tire going into this game. Guys like Kenneth Gainwell, who, if you're just box score looking, have had an extra run because of that, I don't know, lack of starters early. So there's things like Kenneth Gainwell that we released on the Blitz under 13.5 rushing yards. That might be overpriced in because his role will be scaled back if this game stays competitive, which I expect it to be.
Okay, closing in on 500 live viewers across X and YouTube. Hit up the live chat, guys. Who are you betting on tonight? Anyone going to take the Commanders to win this one outright? I am not. You might like it. If you do, tell us why. Okay, let's get into these bets. My best bet for the game, I'm going to go over. I think it's going to be a fun one. Give me over 48.5 on the total for this one. So check out this trend here. For the Commanders, they are 5-0 to the over on the road this season. Average combined score of 57.2 in these Commanders road games. Now, their defense does not travel well at all. They've beaten up on some really bad offenses, but their defense, when they go on the road, they rank dead last in yards per play allowed. So they're going to have their hands full tonight against this Eagles team that's dropped 28 points in 4 straight games. The Commanders doing a lot of scoring as well. They've gotten to 27 in 3 of their last 4 games. And each of these defenses, each team has really played a pretty easy schedule here, especially the Eagles. And each defense has been lit up against competent offenses this season. The Commanders allowed 28 to Pittsburgh, 30 to Baltimore, 33 to the Bengals, 37 to Tampa Bay to open the season. They played a lot of bad quarterbacks outside of that. For the Eagles, yeah, they did shut down the Bengals. You have to give them credit for that for sure. But they allowed 33 to Tampa Bay, 29 to Green Bay in the season opener there. So I think it's going to be a high-scoring one. I think the teams combined to get to 50 in this one, so we'll go over 48.5. Jingles, now the big storyline for this game, Zach Ertz revenge game. And you think he's going to show up, put on a show tonight?
I didn't even put the revenge angle into the handicap, to be
on.
honest. I know, not playing that game, but I'm seeing JP see fourth. Shout out to him. He's going Dotson. He's going on the other revenge angle, the other bench. Dotson over 7. Oh, excuse me. 7.5 receiving yards. Producer Mick, I'm back on those Reese's Pieces. That's what's getting me. But Ertz, he's really maybe the number one volume option in this offense. It's really funny. Everybody likes Terry McLaurin, but Terry McLaurin doesn't run as many routes. Noah Brown is actually running the most routes in that offense. Ertz projecting for 3.9 receptions per the blitz. He's got an accurate quarterback. We see 69% from Jaden Daniels. He's second on the team in target share at 20%, and he's tied for first in routes run per game. There's a lot to like. They use him in high leverage situations. Doesn't have to go far. We saw it in the weird spot last week in week 10. Thought he had it, but I guess he didn't. I thought he got over the line to make that first down. But there's a lot to like in this term of Ertz, and 3.5 is not a big number, especially for a team that could be playing from behind as a 4-point dog.
All right, I got a pretty good hit rate on these over-under longest pass completion props this season. We're going to put one into action here tonight. We're going to go over Jalen Hurts' longest completion of 38.5 yards. So this has been easy work for Hurts this season. Light work for Hurts is what I meant to say. He's topped this in 7 of 9 games, including in 5 straight games. He has a couple 60-yarders this season. And this is what he does. This guy loves to air it out. He is tied for the league lead in pass attempts that have 40 or more air yards. And the Commanders, like I said, they've played a lot of really bad quarterbacks. Daniel Jones's, Andy Dalton, Dinky, Deshaun Watson. But they're going to be bad by a couple of big arm quarterbacks. Both Joe Burrow, Lamar, got a 40-plus yarder completed against them earlier in the season. So we'll take Jalen to do what he does and have at least one nice long completion in this game. Next up, let's take a look at another tight end. This was on my radar, but you submitted this one first to the show. It is first come, first serve around here. It is a dinky little bet. You know, I love these ones. So explain this one to us. I'm
surprised that it exists anymore. Now that Dallas Goedert is back, Grant Calcaterra under 6.5 receiving yards. This one, like, he doesn't have receptions. There's a reason why he is not even in this offense when Goddard is back. And Goddard came back last week. He didn't have to play in the fourth quarter, so he's rested even more because of the short week. I wouldn't look too much into it, but he played 80% of the snaps in the first 3 quarters, which is his normal workload. Calcaterra goes from 33 to 9 routes run, going back to tight end 2. 5 games with Goddard, he has 6 targets and 4 receptions when the 2 of them are in the lineup. Positive game script, could be more blocking in that situation. And it's just a small number. I don't like him being a part in this offense. And even at this number, at 6.5, there's still a small chance that he maybe goes under even with 1 catch, but he's not seeing 2 catches today. That's for sure.
Okay, this next bet. Well, this whole show is sponsored by BetMGM, but this next bet is especially sponsored by BetMGM because they have the best number out there from what I saw this morning. A.J. Brown, over 78.5 receiving yards. I saw this up to 82.5 at one spot. So BetMGM is a spot to make this bet. All of these bets, actually. But Brown, I love this bet for him tonight. So look what he's done this season. He's playing 6 games. He's gone over this number in 5 of those 6 games. He's topped 100 in half of his games this season. Now, I know the Commanders are a different team, a different defense this season. but he absolutely fucking annihilated them last season. He went for 130 in one game, 175 in another. And Washington, when they play good offenses, it does not go well, and they have gotten lit up by a couple of good receivers here this season. Pickens went for 91 against them last week. Flowers went for 132. Chase had a 118 game against them in the season opener. Chris Godwin had 8 catches for, I believe, 85 yards and a touchdown in that game. So, yeah, A.J. Brown in the spotlight game. I expect him to go off. This is another one, Jingles, when I was going through my handicapping process that I kind of looked at. I like these other bets better, but I do like this one. Jaden Daniels, you like him to go under his rushing yards.
Yeah, I just think since the rib injury versus Carolina that his usage has fallen off, and it has statistically, but I just don't think he's a guy that they want to put in harm's way because they know they absolutely need this guy late in the season and for a playoff push. You've seen teams like New England that won't even run Drake May despite his athleticism, and it's probably a smart move, especially we enter the middle of the season here in week 11. The blitz on my side as well, always nice, projects for 40 rushing yards. And since that rib injury, 3 games versus his first 7 games to begin the year, he's minus 3.3 carries per game and minus 22 rushing yards per game. And he's coming off that season low, 3 carries for 5 yards. And he had 8 carries for 35 yards the week before that. Philly, I mean, if you just want to kind of look at the matchup, I don't know if they've faced a lot of running quarterbacks, allowing just 11 yards on the ground to opposing quarterbacks this year. I don't think if he is playing or they've changed to a more conservative approach protecting Daniels. And we've seen, I don't know, he's not throwing 70% completion percentages either here like he was in week 1 to 7. So maybe he's nursing something because of that rib injury, or maybe they're just not putting him in harm's way, which is probably, like I said, the smart thing. So under 45.5, yes, he could probably rip it off in one big one, but this is a Philly defense who sits back and should be able to keep everything in front. Big number. If he goes another low total, expect for this to fall in week 12.
Okay, Jingles, that does it for the Thursday Night Football segment of the show. You're going to be right back with us tomorrow, though, the Mega Football Friday edition of the show, an avalanche of NFL picks for Sunday's game. So thanks for joining today. Best of luck with your bets tonight, and we will catch you again tomorrow.
And let me just say this before we go, Joe. Producer Mick ranks Reese's Pieces, like the circle ones, the Smarty flavor ones, at the bottom of the Reese's totem pole, which I found exactly. He's more of a giant cup guy.
No, the cups are better than Reese's Pieces.
Oh, no, stop it. He said he'd rather have plain M&Ms than Reese's Pieces. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I don't know. You kind of put that out there like it was a really hot take. I'm going to take this out of producer Mick. Yeah, they're good.
No. Reese's Pieces. Reese's Pieces circle ones are the best Reese's that exist. And that's why I got to.
You put them in the freezer? Fantastic.
I don't know that game. All right, so if you're getting a blizzard, do you get frozen cups or do you get frozen pieces?
Cups.
Easy.
I made the mistake of one time. I made the mistake. Either I screwed up or the employee did at Dairy Queen, and they gave me pieces instead of cups once, and it was
I bet they'll never make that mistake again.
Let's go, Reese Cups. Okay.
All right, buddy. Have a great Thursday. Let's have a football game and one play on the court. So let's go. See you later, bud.
Sweep the board, baby. All right, buddy. Okay. What do we have here? Close to 1,000 people watching live right now across YouTube and X. Lots to cover in the world of college football. We spoke to Jake Butt earlier this morning. Let's throw to that interview. It is now time for our weekly conversation with former Michigan Wolverine and Denver Bronco, current analyst for the Big Ten Network, our guy, Jake Butt. Jake, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great, Joe. I can't believe we're halfway through November at this point. Now we're in the thick of the college football playoff rankings, the drama. As the outside temperature gets turned down a little bit, the temperature on the field's getting turned up. This is the month I was most excited about in the new era of the college football playoff, because remember last year, the 4-team playoff, by now we're really talking about like 8 or 9 teams. There have been the majority of the roster had been eliminated. There's probably 20 teams that have a legitimate case, maybe even more, of making it to the 12-team playoff. So I'm all for it.
Okay, yeah, so that's going to be the starting point, I guess, with your interviews for the next couple of weeks on the show. The updated rankings are out. I guess the headliner would be that if the season ended today, Georgia would not make the playoff. So, of the updated rankings that have come out, anything you disagree with at all?
Yeah, so that's crazy. That's crazy because remember, Georgia was a lock. It just speaks to how deep the SEC is right now. My big issue is this is impossible for the committee. I don't pretend that this is an easy job for them to pick, but we need consistent logic. When we talk about March Madness, like we're at least able to see the logic of how different teams get ranked. We don't really know the logic, and it seems like the playoff committee is relying on eye test. Here's the example. So I'm looking at three teams specifically: BYU, Tennessee, Indiana. Last week, okay, Tennessee was ranked above all of them at number 7. They had a win over Bama, cool, but they were 7-1. BYU, though, has been undefeated, as has Indiana. BYU had great wins over number 13 SMU, number 19 Kansas State. Of course, Indiana, no marquee wins, but no losses either. So Tennessee was ranked above all of them. Okay, so then this weekend happens. Tennessee cruises to an easy victory. BYU looks shaky, a little controversy at the end, but they ultimately win. And then Indiana looks shaky, but ultimately beat up a bad Michigan team. So you would think just by the results, the committee would maintain their logic. What did they do? Completely overcorrected. Now Indiana jumped them both. BYU then jumped Tennessee. That's my issue, because I think what we want to see, I can accept it. I know it's impossible to pick the right 12 teams, but the committee needs to be forthright about their logic and make sure they're communicating clearly to all the teams and the fans what they're looking to see. Right now, it just feels like it's eye test and, guessing.
Okay, one player that I've been a big fan of all season. I'm really happy to see this guy getting some buzz here with the season winding down. Ole Miss quarterback Jaxson Dart, and he's actually rising up the odds board to be the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. He's tied with Quinn Ewers for the 4th best odds to be the top overall pick in the 2025 draft at 20-1. Shedeur Sanders, first right now, at 2-1. But looking at Dart, he's had some very impressive performances, the season stuff in the stat sheet, threat to take off. Who's a good comp in the NFL for him?
Well, I know you like him. I'm sure he's a great guy. He's not a number 1 overall pick for me, and I'd probably be hesitant to even take him in the first round because I think he's a great college quarterback. Don't get me wrong. Look, I'd love to have him on my team, and he does a lot of things well. His accuracy, his ball placement. He's extremely mobile too. I mean, he can make you pay with his feet, both in the quarterback run game and his ability to navigate the pocket. But to me, when I'm looking at a comp, I could have said all those things about a teammate of mine in Drew Aller. Another guy that they look similar on film, Matt Corral. Jaxson Dart is a really good example of a guy that's going to put up great numbers in college, does a lot of things well. But I'm not confident that his game is going to translate to high-level NFL quarterback play. Certainly not to spend a first-round pick on him. So what ends up happening in the draft every year is, teams that need a quarterback, they press a little bit. I would not spend a first-round pick on Jaxson Dart, but would love to have him on my college team.
Yeah, it's always so tricky with the level of competition, such a gap, even from week to week in college football. Forget about college football to the NFL, right? So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he develops the rest of the season and where he ends up in the draft. Okay, so not a lot of big-time games here this week in college, but we have a major one of note going down Saturday evening. All of a sudden, a must-win game for Georgia. They're favored by 10 points over Tennessee. Obviously different teams, but they stomped Tennessee 38-10 last season. But with this spread here of 10 points, one of your best bets of the week, you like Tennessee to give them a game.
Yeah, that's a lot of points. And honestly, I might sprinkle a little bit of money on Tennessee to win this game because look, Georgia, you talk about the talent composites, and certainly they got a great roster. They've had some good wins. I mean, that win against Texas was impressive. We've almost forgotten about how they handled Clemson earlier in the year, but they've also looked shaky. And one guy, just to kind of build off the Jaxson Dart conversation, Carson Beck was a guy that we thought was going to be a first-round pick for sure, but maybe a top 10 and the number 1 overall pick. That's not been the case. And when you think about a spread like this, Tennessee has kind of adapted a bit in terms of their scheme. They have a power running game and an ability to control the clock, and then they play great defense. Particularly, they're able to get after the quarterback. Carson Beck, I got to just tell you this here, Joe. First pressure, Carson Beck is in recent weeks putting up some of the worst stats I think we've ever seen. So in these past 3 games, he's been pressured 37 times on 125 dropbacks. In those 37 times he was pressured, he only has 8 completions. He's been sacked 7 times and has thrown 5 interceptions. Like he cannot get out of his way. He just doesn't look comfortable. And for whatever reason, that's their ability to stretch defenses vertically is not there. So I think Tennessee, again, I'd probably sprinkle a little bit of cash on them to pull off the upset. But 10 points with the trends of these two teams is far too much.
Okay, I want to get your thoughts on this Texas-Arkansas game in the early window on Saturday. Spread open at 16.5 in favor of Texas, obviously. It's down to 13.5. I'm kind of surprised by that. A total of 57.5. So outside of Georgia and Vanderbilt, Texas has steamrolled everybody. 7 of their 9 wins this season by 19 or more points. Arkansas, coming off a game where Jaxson Dart will bring him up again. He lit them up for 515 yards. They lost by 32. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking this game has all the makings of a bloodbath in favor of Texas. Are we aligned on that thought?
Yeah, we are, especially with that line coming down to 13.5. And, Texas, the conversation around them has been really interesting in recent weeks because, now in time, we look at that schedule and Texas really doesn't have those marquee wins. It's not their fault that, Oklahoma isn't good or Michigan isn't good, right? They got their butts whooped by Georgia. But the context of that, let's use that game as an example, because to beat Arkansas, you got to be able to stop the run. You got to play great defense. Texas's defense is extremely underrated. Georgia put up points, but remember how many turnovers that they had in Texas offense had in that game. Like the Texas defense was backed up and put in bad positions constantly throughout that game. And yet their defense, when you look at the tape, did a really great job of giving their team a chance. They're going to make life hard on Arkansas. And on the flip side, when you talk about 13.5, you need to put up points, Joe. Arkansas, the back end of Arkansas's defense is extremely vulnerable. They give up a number of explosive plays. I don't think their secondary is capable of hanging with Texas's weapons and particularly Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers is getting healthy. You look at his performance in recent weeks, it's starting to trend like this, which is really encouraging. You want to peak at the right time in college football. So I think this is an example of Texas. They got the rocket ship fueled up. This is the week where it just takes off into outer space. I'm with you. I think they win a big one here.
Okay, to the NFL we go. A number of marquee games this week. Starting tonight, a very good-looking Thursday night football game. We've had some really good Thursday night football games this season. We have the Commanders taking on the Eagles. Eagles favored by 3.5. I'd probably lean towards that on the spread. Not going to bet it, though. I do like the over on 48.5, though. Any thoughts on the matchup tonight?
Yeah, so, Thursday night in you always want to, first thing I look at is travel, and that's not going to be a major factor in this game. Then you look at health, and for the Commanders, particularly on the offensive line, there's some questions how healthy they'll be. Then you can get into the X's and O's. And Philadelphia's done some great things. Like they're winning games, they're making improvements. Okay, all good. The context matters. The opponents that they've faced, their collective record, I believe, is 13-35 of their most recent wins. So they're beating up on lesser teams. All good. Anyone can win in the NFL on any given week. They are winning. But I look at the Commanders, and I'm seeing a team that's, Philadelphia is beating up on lesser teams. The Commanders are a team that I'm really starting to buy, Joe. When 3.5 points in this matchup, effectively, it feels like when you look at the advanced stats, defensively, offensively, they're really evenly matched. I said the injuries early might give me a little bit hesitation, but I really like the Commanders. I think they got a chance to make a run here. It's an important game. 3.5 points is too many, so I'd lean towards the Commanders in this matchup.
Yeah, that little hook makes all the difference in the world. I probably would have considered betting the Eagles at 3, not so much though at three and a
It
half.
got bet down and then bet back up a little bit, didn't it? The line, there was some movement. So
Yeah, and this might be the type of game whoever has the ball last wins type of thing, right? So we shall
yeah.
see. A banger on Thursday night. Okay, so let's talk Anthony Richardson. Big news yesterday. He's back in. A couple weeks ago we were talking. It looked like he might be done here, but the Colts, really bad look. It's been all bad press for him this season. The play hasn't been good. He's only completed more than 10 passes once in a game this season. I'm kind of surprised by this based on the fact that the Colts are very much still alive here in the playoff race. Now he's going to get the start in New York against a Jets defense that's been really bad since they fired Robert Saleh, ironically enough. So question for you, how tough of a spot is this for Richardson? He's going to have all the pressure in the world on him on Sunday.
Oh, it's a tough spot, but it's a tough spot for everyone, and it's a tough spot for the organization because this has the opportunity to really lose a locker room. Because you mentioned the chance they're still in the playoff race, like they still can make a run. They're a dangerous team, and if Richardson goes out and plays the way he had earlier in the season, that's not going to be a great thing. Part of playing quarterback is it's not just about your arm talent or your X's and O's or your ability on the field. Part of playing quarterback and what makes Tom Brady so great is when you walk into the huddle, what's the response of the other 10 guys when they look into your eye? The other 10 guys have to trust that you know your job and you're capable of leading them. We talked about the decision to pull himself out of the game a few weeks ago. Those are deep wounds that I don't think get healed as quickly as those wounds don't get healed very quickly. So to me, this is a risky decision for the organization. I don't know the full information about maybe he's getting in there at 5 a.m. and staying late and trying to earn the trust of his teammates, and hopefully that translates to success. But I see a guy that, in terms of operating, knowing the mental side of the position, I don't think he's quite there yet. And that you can lose a locker room if you lose what could be a winnable and an important game.
Yeah, tricky spot there for the Colts. Absolutely. Okay, so game of the week, maybe the game of the year going down in Buffalo. The Bills favored by 2 points over the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs, Jake, 19-4-1 against the spread in their last 24 games as an underdog. That includes 18 outright wins. This trend especially hot lately. They've won 7 straight games as an underdog. They, of course, haven't lost a game since Christmas Day of last season. I don't know. You can make the argument maybe they're due for a letdown spot. The Bills are going to treat this like a playoff game. I'm still going to go with Kansas City here myself. I love them on a teaser bet. What do you think for the matchup here on Sunday?
I mean, you pretty much laid it all out here, Joe. Like, we know these teams, we know these quarterbacks, we know the talent, we know the schemes, all of that. And the question is, Kansas City, they are going to have a letdown spot. Like, they are going to come back down to earth. I don't believe they're going to go undefeated this year. The question is when? Hey, I thought it was going to be last week until Denver forgot how to protect for their field goal unit. At some point, the chickens are going to come home to roost. I value the fact that Kansas City is winning games. You cannot downplay that. That's the business we're in. I just look at this and I think, the Chiefs being undefeated, I don't know that that's a representation of where they're at as a team in terms of ability to play 4-quarter football. I like the Bills in this one. Everything you just said is the trend, and it makes me uneasy to bet the Bills. But I there's just a level of trust for the Bills that I think these guys are always back and forth. I think this is one that Josh Allen is able to lead his team to a victory and get back on the winning side.
Okay, let's talk your best bet of the week for the NFL. Another banger here. Russell Wilson turning back the clock a little bit here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're taking on the Ravens. The Steelers, a 3-point underdog, and you like them to cover the number.
Yeah, so I was doing some research for this game. This is one of the great rivalries. I saw something the other day that said this game should be played in a dark alley behind like some abandoned building. That's what it is. It's a fist fight. It's a dog fight. It's going to be that every single time, which means it's going to be a close game. So underdogs in this rivalry. have covered 79% of games in the Tomlin-Harbaugh era. So the underdog usually, basically, I believe that's a trend of how close these games have been. Underdogs with a 3-point spread are 18-2-3 against the spread. So that's really it. I mean, you could convince me and sell me in either direction, but those trends confirm what we know to be true, that this is a rivalry where things become close. I do also like what they've gotten out of Russell Wilson. The total numbers lie a little bit. Their efficiency may not be great, but they've been able to connect on some explosive plays, and that can kind of hide some of the snap to snap deficiencies. But just off those trends right there, betting the underdog, I like the 3 points.
Yeah, the Russell Wilson resurgence. A little early to say. It's only been, I believe, 3 games now. Kind of reminds me of Kurt Warner. He had a great career in St. Louis with the Rams. Then he goes to the Giants. It didn't really work out. Then he completely got it all back when he went to the Arizona Cardinals. They, of course, went to the Super Bowl. Russell Wilson may be on a similar path here with the Steelers.
Well, I mean, also, too, think about when Russell was at his best. A big piece of his success was the defensive success. And what we know in Pittsburgh and Mike Tomlin, they're always going to have great defense. And that allows Russell to play within himself. Denver put the entire weight of the organization on Russell's shoulders. And clearly we saw how that turned out. For Pittsburgh, they're kind of built to say, listen, man, just go do your thing. We trust you. Tomlin's a great players coach. I think they've been able to unlock some of that vintage ability in Russell Wilson.
Let's go Steelers. Okay, one last one. We're going back to college for this. I love these college football props. Are a little under the radar. Of course, college football props don't get as much buzz as they do in the NFL. But you have a good spot here. Wisconsin's running back. You like him to stuff the stat sheet a little bit here on Saturday.
Yeah, his name's Tawee Walker. And why I like this is, so Wisconsin's at home playing Oregon. They're coming off a bye. Oregon just played Maryland, who was coming off a bye. And Maryland has a lot of deficiencies as a team, but they were able to make that game competitive against the Ducks. Now the Ducks are going on the road, similar story. The key here is Oregon's defense. They're a really, really good defense, but they have some holes and they've given up some rushing yards, given up about a little under 120 yards per game. The entire Wisconsin offense runs through Tawee Walker. So if they want to keep this one close, they're going to have to run the ball. I look at their success. Their last 5 games, they have 3 wins, 2 losses. In the wins, they have like a plus 100-yard rushing yards difference. In their losses, they're down 100 yards in the rushing difference. So the formula is quite simple to me. Tawee Walker has to have a big game, 80-plus yards. That seems very doable for the Badgers running back.
I will be running to bet that at the conclusion of the program today.
Come on.
Let's go. Okay, Jake, we'll leave it at that. Best of luck with all your bets this weekend. Best of luck with your work with the Big Ten Network, and we'll catch you again next Thursday.
Thanks, Joe. See you next week.
Okay, on to the NBA we go. Like I said off the top, we weren't going to cover NBA on today's show. Just one game. It's not a very good one. The Mavericks favored by 9 over the Jazz, but John Metler says there's 2 bets I like. So I dug into the game. I dug deep, and I dug deep to find a bet that I like for this NBA game tonight too. But first, I'll throw a couple things at you from last night. Metler, the Cleveland Cavaliers improved to 13-0, 14-1 to win the finals. I don't think anyone's betting them to win the finals. Plus 550 to win the East. They need a couple breaks. They would need Tatum or Brown to have like a season-ending injury, I think. But we'll discuss this for how serious should we take the Cavs, if serious at all. They kind of, they have some pretty good scoring depth, but maybe just a good regular season team is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I don't want to be rude, but don't they kind of remind you of the Atlanta Hawks with Mike Budenholzer, who would win 55 games and then face LeBron James and the Cavaliers and get swept right away in the playoffs? It kind of does have that vibe to it. I mean, you hope it's more. I always root for like these. I mean, Cavaliers have had some success. I'm thinking about my Magic, or you root for these small market teams to win, but it's not like they haven't won some titles here recently. They're good. I just don't think I think like you said, the Eastern, they're also like beating up on some Eastern, the Philadelphia 76ers. They didn't have Paul George. They didn't have Tyrese Maxey. They didn't have Joel Embiid. Shout out Jared McCain, though. That guy's now the favorite to win Rookie of the Year after dropping 34 yesterday. So he's had some big games there. I don't know. The Cavs just don't don't excite me. I feel like you see it all the time in the NFL too, where it's like a team will go into the playoffs, they'll be like one of the top 3 seeds, and you're like, nah. Was it like the Vikings? Was it 2 or 3 years ago? They were like 13-4, and then they were underdogs in the first round of the playoffs against the Giants or something like that. It just feels like that to me. But we'll see. They have a good roster. I just once you get those superstars on the court and you're playing a best of 7, you have the time to scout them and all those things. I feel like there's better options out there.
Long way to go. Okay. Next up, LeBron James. John wants to go on the record and accuse LeBron James of being on steroids. John, the floor is yours. I'm just joking. LeBron James now, 39 years old.
Yeah. 3
straight triple doubles. And it's just not one of these shitty situations where he's stuffing the stat sheet, his team's losing, and the Lakers won all of those games. So I just want to point out, I know it goes without saying, low-hanging fruit for a content topic, but LeBron's still awesome. 39 years old. He's a top 10 player in the NBA, easily. Anyone going to debate that? I don't think so. You hit a nice bet with him last night, but LeBron, pretty incredible. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I actually saw a tweet, and I retweeted before I came on here, they're like, the craziest part about the NBA is the guys who were dominating when I was 14 are still dominating right now. And that really resonated with me because I have a Cleveland Cavaliers kids medium LeBron James jersey from like 2004. It's like this big. He's still doing it. And I'm 32 years old now. And it's like the same guy. Steph Curry hits the dagger night the night before. Kevin Durant with the Suns, LeBron James. There's a lot of guys. I mean, Chris Paul's even having a great year, by his standards and his age and stuff. LeBron is just like a massive triple double last night, 35 points, leads them to the win. It's insane. You just keep thinking it's gonna end, right? Like usually you just fall off a cliff with Father Time and it just catches up to you, and you don't feel like his athleticism is obviously down, but man, shout out to him though, because he's improved his shooting too. His 3-point shooting is a lot better. So he's also kind of adapted. He's just so smart too, like just plays the game so well.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking, though, for the Lakers, it's early. They're still undefeated at home here. If they have a good regular season, which they haven't had the past couple of years, they've been, competing in the play-in tournament. But if they could get a top 4 seed, get home court for the first round or two, I think the West is more open than it had been in recent years. The Nuggets don't look like the dominant force that they were 2 years ago. What's going on with the Timberwolves losing to the Trailblazers here, right? So I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked, man, if the Lakers go on another run here. I mean, they were in the West Finals 2 years ago, weren't they? And I think JJ Redick has kind of lit a fire under these guys, but it is early, like I said.
I think there's going to be a move too. The D'Angelo Russell thing that's going to break up. There's no way. It's way too early for that conflict move to the bench. I mean, he says he's all in for just winning, but they just can't have him on the bench. There's only so many pieces. You need him contributing or someone with that salary in that spot contributing. They have some first round picks. I think they have access to 3 they can trade. So you're going to start seeing, I know you love this. It'll be like 3 guys nobody wants in the Lakers, 3 first round picks for Trae Young or like something like that. You're going to start seeing those trades for the Lakers. I do think they do something though. LeBron still, like you're saying, that guy, you only have so many years to go all in with him. So I think it'd be interesting. The one name, you brought him up in the offseason, and when I was watching last night, Knicks Bulls, you think everyone overthought the Zach LaVine stuff? Like they're trying to give him away and nobody took the bait. I know he has a big contract, but like 31 points, 8 assists, Madison Square Garden, big game. It just seems like the Lakers could use him,
Yeah, I mean, he's an awesome scoring option. I mean, who do you got to give up to get him is a big part of it. But if the Lakers have these games, LeBron and AD, they're not playing 82 games.
Right.
Or both of them even playing in 70 games. They're going to need somebody else that can step up and take on some scoring. I think that'd be a fantastic pickup if you have Zach LaVine as your third and a half option. That's pretty good. It's like we said about Porzingis with the Celtics last season. If you have Porzingis as your second option, if he's your fourth option, that's looking pretty good for you, right? So, yeah, we'll see what the Lakers do. Hopefully they can stay healthy. It'd be a pretty cool story if they can make a run of things. Okay, so we got this game here tonight, Mavs at Jazz. We've somehow come up with 3 picks for this game. You found a few that jumped out to you. I dug for one, and I love this bet. But let's start here. You have a bet that you like for Luka.
Yeah, when Luka Doncic over 8.5 assists. So I honestly wasn't expecting to even find anything today because there's one game you think it'd be hard to sneak one past them on the pricing here. And then especially Luka Doncic. I was definitely not expecting to see value on Luka Doncic. So it's over 8.5 assists plus 105. There's a couple injuries that really drew me to this. So Walker Kessler, he's a great shot blocker on the interior for the Jazz. He's out. He's not playing. John Collins is filling in at the center position. That is like a huge swing in rim protection. John Collins is undersized, more of an offensive player. And then on the other side, you have the Mavericks. Derek Lively returned against the Warriors. So Luka Doncic's assist prop, you saw it last year in the playoffs, at the end of the year, when he has Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively, and they're just switching out minutes and they kind of take on they combine for 48 minutes at that center position. When he has those two lob threats, his assists go up. It's just Luka's going to find them. And against John Collins, those lob threats should be able to thrive on the inside. So just 8.5 plus 105. You are kind of concerned maybe for a blowout potential and stuff, but I did drop Luka's minutes to kind of compensate for that. And there was still an edge. So I went Luka Doncic over 8.5 assists plus 105.
Okay, my best bet for this game. I dug deep. I found something I like. I'm going to go under the first quarter total. 59.5 points. I think this is too high. So look at these teams, these offenses take a while to get going. Slow starts offensively for these teams. They're ranked 22nd and 28th in first quarter scoring. Jazz are actually dead last in first quarter offensive rating. Dallas's 3-point shooting has been especially awful in the first quarter of games this season. We bring it all together with a bit of a trend here. The first quarter total 5-0 to the under in Jazz home games this season. Average combined score just 53.4, and these teams met at the end of October. For what it's worth, they only combined to score 46 points in the first quarter of that game. So kind of going with some trends, the scoring patterns, slow starts. I think we got the ammo for a bet there, so I'll take the under in the first quarter. Okay, John, bring it home. Last pick of the show today, Colin Sexton. What do we like?
The BYB points prop. I went with Colin Sexton. Jalen Brunson last night, super disappointing. He had 18 points at half, didn't get there, missed a couple shots down the stretch.
Been there.
Yeah, anyways, I'm going Colin Sexton over 15.5 points, minus 115. When he plays, he's a smaller, really fast guard, and the Mavericks really struggle to contain him. You've seen it in previous matchups here. When you have the point of attack defenders are Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, Colin Sexton really does thrive against the Mavericks in previous matchups. And it is just really his speed. He's gone under a couple games here, and that's dropped his total down from 17.5 down to 15.5. And that's where you start to see the edge because he's both projected for, I think, about 17.5. So if this was sitting at 17.5, no bet. But with it sitting down at 15.5, I'll take the over. Also, the Jazz, this is going to be an offensive game. They can't slow down the Mavericks. So you kind of that should help his minutes as well, just because they should be pushing more for their offensive guys because there really is no defensive guys to even play on the Jazz.
Okay, let's go. That's it for picks today. Let's recap what we gave out. If you missed the Thursday Night Football section off the top, gave out Commanders, Eagles over 48.5. Jalen Hurts over longest completion, 38.5 yards. AJ Brown, this was a Bet MGM exclusive. Best number right there, 77.5. Love that bet. Jingles went with Zach Ertz over 3.5 receptions. Grant Calcaretta, I don't even know if I barely even heard of this guy. We're going to go under 6.5 receiving yards. And Jaden Daniels under his rushing yard total 43.5. In the NBA, John went with Luka over 8.5 assists. Colin Sexton over 15.5 points. Mavericks Jazz first quarter under 59.5 points for me. Also bet that over at BetMGM. Okay, so just the one game in the NBA tonight. It looks like, is every team in the league in action tomorrow? We got double-digit games here, it looks like at least. So we'll have a lot more to discuss in the NBA tomorrow. Producer Mick's going to be busy getting the show ready. A lot to discuss in the NFL. Brad Powers will be by as well. Some best bets for college football. So make sure you tune in then. Same time, same place. Thanks to all of my guests for joining today. Great job by producer Mick again today. Thank you to BetMGM for sponsoring the show. Thank you to all the great viewers for tuning in, especially the guys in the live chat, the guys and gals we had a female viewer made herself aware to us. So it's good to bring in some members of the female demographic. Okay, guys, same time, same place tomorrow. We will see you then. Best of luck with your bets tonight. We'll catch you on Friday. Woo!